Today I have a really good interview. I want you to stick around with. I know a lot of you are thinking about API security and thinking about security at the edge. I've got a real expert here who's going to help us understand how that all works. He's from ThreatX. I hope you'll stick around and watch today's video. Hi, I'm Ed Amoroso from Tag Cyber, and I want to welcome you to our video today. I have a good friend of mine, Gene Fay, who's the CEO of ThreatX, a cybersecurity company. We're going to ask Gene to share with us some of the tech, a little background on ThreatX. I think you're going to enjoy it, especially if you work in AppSec, and most people nowadays do. Even if you don't think you're working in AppSec, I bet you are. So, Gene, welcome. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Ed. Great to be a part of your podcast. Thanks for making me a guest.
You bet. Gene, let's start maybe a couple of words about the company, and then we can get into the tech a little bit.
Sure, absolutely. So ThreatX is an API security company focused on helping companies via our reverse proxy. So it's a very easy way to implement and install. And besides API security, we also do traditional application protection, bot management, layer 7 DDoS. So those four aspects allow us to really solve unique, sophisticated credential stuffing and other types of attacks.
Gene, you guys sell typically direct to enterprise, or do you do it through partners and managed service and so on? How do people normally buy your service?
Sure. About 50% of our business is coming through the channel, and that number is continuing to accelerate. But we also have some managed service providers that also leverage our technology. Customers are enterprise customers, some of the biggest Fortune 50 companies in the world, as well as smaller organizations like credit unions, software companies, healthcare providers. So we've been really blessed to have a very large market opportunity for people looking for API security.
That's really awesome. Hey, what was it that sort of drove the creation of the company? Was this threat area, or was some other? I'm curious what the story is, the founding story for the company.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you know, Ed, I'm not the founder of the company, but our two founders, Brett Settle and Andrew Usix, are very active today in the business. They started deploying traditional WAF technology in Perva, Akamai, and others at some of the companies. So they're practitioners. I always say they don't just sympathize, they empathize with our customers because they dealt with those problems. And what they saw when it comes to blocking technology, real-time blocking technology, whether APIs or applications, is that so much of the tech, even today, and we're going back now 7, 8 years ago, was all based on signatures or rules. And they said there's got to be an easier way than having to, on every API or every application, create a rule that decides what's good or bad. So what these guys did is decided to go after solving that problem. And the way they did it was ultimately creating a fuzzy logic engine that allows us to look at every interaction and score it, as opposed to this binary yes, no. We deal with yes, no, maybe in a kind of a unique way. And that is, we score every interaction from 100, block it immediately, to 0, let it through, and everything in between. So what that allows us to do is basically look at an interaction with, we call it an entity, and it could be good traffic or bad traffic, and score it. And if it's clearly malicious, a SQL injection, well, hey, we'll score it above a 70 and automatically block it. But if it's something that's questionable but not nefarious, we'll give it a score of, let's say, 30. And then we watch to see what happens next. And that ultimately is kind of the aha moment that these guys had, and ultimately created the company around this. Because what what it allows us to do is that our customers don't have to have these fine-grained rules for every interaction. So they've created the tech, and I'm lucky enough to be working with both of them as well as the rest of the team to build a great company around that awesome technology.
I always thought fuzzy logic was a good tool for cybersecurity because it matches the reality of a threat. There's never these binary
Right.
kind of observations. In the early days with signatures, it was like you match or it doesn't, and then variants pop up, and you knew something wasn't right. even though it was matching. So that's very clever. It's a good idea to do that. Now, do end users, what's sort of their interaction with all of this? Does it come sort of in a box already and all done, or do they go in and configure? What's the experience for a user with this technology?
Well, I think it goes back to, for us, the practitioner side of Brett and Andreas is we have a lot of flexibility in how we deploy. We have customers, large or enterprises or SME organizations, do everything on their own, fully enable themselves to deploy the technology, and it can be deployed on-prem, 100% in the cloud, or any version in between. So it's a Kubernetes Docker container, so super flexible. And then we have customers at the other end. Some of our newest customers have opted for 100% managed service. So we deploy and we support the customer on a 24/7 worldwide basis. And for them, ultimately, it came down to it's, as you know, Ed, the whole shortage of talent. So 600,000 to 700,000 open positions in the U.S., 1.3, 1.4 worldwide. So they loved our platform approach, but for them, they didn't have the people to handle even the alerts that were going to come out of the system. So from there, it's again a flexible, fully individuals driving it themselves, customizing themselves to a fully managed service offering.
That's cool. Now, you guys relying on or using any frameworks? Like I know, like OWASP is pretty popular. How do you guys link back? Is it OWASP or some other thing you're using?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely use that as a framework, and we're constantly enhancing our capabilities around that. It wasn't the starting point, but with everything that's going on, especially from an application and API perspective, we build more and more around those frameworks to enable our customers to understand what's getting covered and what isn't getting covered when it comes to that.
You guys have a very impressive range of things. I noticed, like with bot mitigation, for example. Is it a similar tech to deal with? Is it a bot or not? How do you guys do that? Or is that different? How's that
Yeah,
work?
I mean, we look at it from protect the customer first side of things. And to protect the customer, you have to understand all aspects of what's happening to the customer. So the evolution of the company, starting in the application area, moving to APIs, but realizing along the journey that we have to understand bots and DDoS attack. I use this, I won't name the customer, but a large restaurant chain was under attack. Their rewards program was being hit. They could see the traffic going up. They could see the money being monetized, costing hundreds of thousands of dollars in theft, but they couldn't figure out how to solve that problem. They had a DDoS provider, which I'll let them remain nameless, but wasn't providing any protection. They brought in a bot management company. I won't name them, but they were just recently acquired. And between the DDoS and the bot management, no protection.
Mhm.
They bring us in, put us in line via a proof of concept, and within a couple of hours, we could see exactly what's happening. And ultimately, what it was a bot attack disguised as a DDoS attack hitting the API. So we could see that it was bypassing the application. So by seeing the four vectors, we understood exactly what was happening in that attack. And that's exactly where we just shine. But these companies that are pure play API and not understand the application, or these pure play bot management that aren't understanding, let's say, the API, we think that's not the full picture. And it's ultimately causing more work for our customers, or that basically then they have to go and correlate these things on the back end, or I should say our prospects. So our customers get the benefit of visibility because we can clearly see those four vectors, understand what's happening on a particular API, and be able to defend against it. So it's a really unique approach that allows ultimately better protection without the need for a heavy management lift of creating all sorts of signatures to be able to do this level of protection.
Let me make sure I have it right. So for an end user, they're going to get these four different levels. They're going to get API, they're going to get WAF, they're going to get DDoS, and they're going to get bot mitigation, kind of all as a combined threat detection and risk engine, I think you guys call it. It's a good name.
Exactly.
Do I have that right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That is
And we
very powerful. That's a cool
yeah,
doc.
and
Right.
from a pricing perspective, our board every once in a while will bring up this idea of, hey, let's charge for each component. Let's charge for managed services. For us, we want to keep it super simple. And that is, customer pays one price, gets all the benefits. Now, if they choose not to use our managed services, no problem, same price. We didn't want to be in a situation where we get the customer or the end user really excited about the platform, but then we get into procurement and they start to go, do we really need bot management? Maybe we only want, 8x5 local time support. Like, no, we want to give them one price, give them the 4 season experience, no matter what they buy from us.
What's been the experience dealing with customers? I'm going to guess all of them that are like moving to these cloud hybrid
Right.
complex arrangements where they're connected to all kinds of crazy stuff all over. When I first started doing this thing so many years ago, it was easy. Your network was in a big egg, and that was it. Now the egg is broken and the yolk
Right.
is everywhere, and that's what I'm guessing 100% of your customers.
Yeah.
So
It,
how do you like find the places to go in and do the threat detection? Does that require some analysis up front?
Not that much. I mean, our customers are pretty good at understanding what they have, where they are today, and also where they're going. And the cloud first initiatives that have been happening, I mean, arguably over the last 10 years, but really over the last 3 to 4 years has seemed to really accelerate. We whether good or lucky, either way worked out really well for us. And that is Andreas, our CTO and co-founder. He ultimately picked the Kubernetes Docker container pretty early in the design phase. And that allows for so much flexibility when it comes to deployments. We have a customer that's behind the Great Wall of China for some of their business, a substantial part of the business, but they also use us in Azure in the US. And being able to deploy those very different environments in a single platform, single screen, it really enabled us to ultimately win that customer. So having flexibility in your design phase really helped us with that. The other piece of it is it's fully API enabled, meaning it's very easy for us to integrate to a SOAR or to a threat feed or things like that. So we help customers no matter what way they want to deploy it or what combination of ways they want to deploy it. We can help them do that.
Folks, I'm here with Gene Fay, who's the CEO of ThreatX. We're talking about bot mitigation and DDoS and API in particular. Fascinating discussion. Gene, years ago we would have said that this kind of thing would be perfect for critical infrastructure and maybe nobody else. But tell me, are we at the point now, maybe it's depressing, where everybody's kind of getting targeted? Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe like, are your best customers the ones that feel the most intense threat? Or talk to me a little bit about the market here and what you guys are seeing.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I'll kind of semi quote a mutual friend that we both know, Bruce Schneier. Uh,
Yeah.
Bruce Schneier said, if the Russians were to come over here tomorrow and go to Raytheon in Massachusetts and go with guns, land, take go up to Andover, Mass, and go into the Raytheon plant and steal plans and then get back on a plane and fly away. Well, we'd go to war over that.
You would.
Right, we would. Right, in a second, we've been attacked. But yet that happens tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of times a day to companies
Yeah.
around the world. And we do have the best government protection that the money can buy, but yet individuals and more important, not equally important, corporations have to protect themselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, this isn't about critical infrastructure. Some of our best clients are medium-sized credit unions, and then we have large alcohol distributors. So one of the major companies in the world, all needing exactly the same type of protection that they need for themselves, because unfortunately, every time they're attacked, they can't call their local congressman and say, "Hey, let's go get those guys," because those guys and gals are around the world, and we've got to ultimately be able to protect ourselves. So it's unfortunately my daughter, my oldest daughter, asked me one time, is all this bad news about cybersecurity good for you? And I said, well, unfortunately, sometimes somebody's bad news is somebody's good news, and you and I have been doing it a long time. There used to be 200 cybersecurity companies 18 years ago when I started here, and now there's 4 to 5,000 cybersecurity
Yeah.
companies. So it's a booming industry.
You're right. It is. It's depressing for society, but maybe in a sense, it keeps us pretty busy in the
Yeah,
industry. So not a little bit
yeah,
of yin and yang there. But hey,
yeah.
any predictions about where this is all going? Are you generally optimistic that we're eventually going to make some progress? Because it feels like, in a broad sense, our say our society and global business is not making progress generally. But are we going to get better at cybersecurity, or is this
Yeah,
depressing?
I am an optimist when it comes to this thing. I think about what the Wild West was at one point in the
Yeah.
U.S. So going back to the early 1800s, and people thinking like, hey, can you ever bring semblance and civility to chaos? And I think you will. Like governments will learn to work better with each other, and that will ultimately allow us to have um, repercussions when people do bad things. When you have a world like we do today, where certain parts of the world can hack with no repercussions, there's no reason not to continue to do that. But I look at a world and I don't know whether that's 5 years away or 25 years away where this becomes a set of rules and some level of civility and some level of repercussions when somebody does something bad, that gives recourse and or reasons not to do it. But for now, unfortunately, it is the Wild West, and whether it's an individual losing their identity or a major corporation experiencing a phishing attack where everything's been encrypted and everything in between, for now, it's a pretty scary world. It's a connected world, but it's created opportunities for the bad guys. But I do think in the future we'll create the infrastructure and the communication that we need amongst countries to be able to protect ultimately individuals and the corporations around the world.
So, Gene, if there's some people watching who have concerns about their APIs and want a good detection, correlation, security engine to help them, what's the best way for them to be in touch? Is the website the
Yeah,
optimal place?
absolutely. ThreatX.com. Please visit us. My team would be glad to set up a demo. POCs are super easy, less than 10 to 15 days. We can get it up and running actually within a couple of hours. Very lightweight effort by an organization to test our technology and see if it can help ultimately benefit them and help to protect them.
Well, I hope they call. I want to take a minute on behalf of my team at Tag Cyber. I want to thank you for the work you do. We're always appreciative, not only you guys doing this from a business perspective, but it really does help. When we reduce this risk, it makes life better for everyone. So keep doing the good work that you've done. And again, I want to thank you for joining us today. And keep up the good work.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you to you and your team for all the good work you guys do, and greatly appreciate the opportunity to join you today.
You bet. For everyone else watching, we'll see you next time.